Hilchis Toen V'Nitan Perik Shishi. So the beginning of the Perik, the Rambam discusses the din that when a person comes along and he says a taina and bezdin, and the other person, the nitan, responds to the taina has to be clear. In other words, you can't just taina say you owe me money. He has to explain why he owes the money. And al derezeh, when the person responds, I don't owe you money, he also has to explain why he doesn't owe money. He can't just say a general answer, you owe me money, and he'll say, I don't owe you money, you're a liar. He has to explain. He's taining why he owes the money. You lent him money. He gave him a pikadon, etc. And he has to answer, no, you didn't lend me money. You didn't give me a pikadon. We'll soon see. Perik Shishi. Bali dinim shebo lebezdin. Tohna echad va'amar mana yeshli eitzel zeh. There's a money of mine by this person. Why? Shehil visiu. Either I lent him money. Yeshiv kadeti yatzeh. I gave him a pikadon. Yeshiv gazel mimeni. I worked for him, and therefore he owes me money for my wages. And then the Heishiv HaNitan, so the person, the Nitan, responds, or just a general answer. I don't owe you anything. He's a liar. That's not a proper answer. Answer his taina and explain yourself. And say clearly your answer, just like he said clearly his taina. He's taining you lent money. Did you borrow money? He's taining you borrowed money from him. Did you actually borrow or didn't you borrow? He's taining he gave you a pikadon. So the question is, did he give you a pikadon? Didn't he give you a pikadon? So that when the person comes along with a clear taina, so the nitan has to give a clear tshuva. A clear tshuva means say the story, what happened, not the maskana of his din. When he says, I owe you no money, why don't we accept this answer? Because because maybe he's making a mistake. He's going to end up swearing falsely. It's possible that this person, the Tain, is saying the truth, and he lent him money. And Lepel, this person is also saying the truth, because this person, he gave back the chav either to his son of the malva or to his wife, or he gave him a present instead of the chav, and v'yidama b'daitish niftam and chav. In other words, it could be that this borrower, which Taka borrowed, thinks that he doesn't owe any money because he made a payment. He made either a payment to Lebnei or Leishtei, or he gave him a matana, and he thinks as a result of that he owes him no money. How could you say you don't owe anything? Shema atem is chayiv min adin. It's not possible that you are chayiv. Shema atem is chayiv min adin l'shalom. Ve'inati yidei. You don't really realize that you owe him the money. You have to say the story. Say exactly the story of what happened. Ve'hem yidiacho. They'll notify you, they'll tell you, but the Toyin is saying a story, and as a result of that, he's saying you owe me money, and the Nitan has to say back a story, say no, the story is different, and therefore I don't owe you money. Now, could be he's saying the story is different, and he still owes him money, so therefore that's the Dayan after this. You should explain why aren't you chayving, and the Bezdin gives suggestions to him, either mipnei shelo dvar me'elam or mipnei shehoye virzartoli. So the Bezdin gives suggestions what are possible answers that you should give. But you should say clearly what your answer is. Shaharei anudonim b'miteich sheyochel lemer b'chol mokim. So the Rambam is adding over here. The pshat is that normally why is Bezdin giving him suggestions what to answer? Maybe he would want to answer something else. So the Bezdin should just tell him. Answer what the answer is. Don't tell him, give him suggestions. So the answer is, because even if he wants to answer something else, Lamashal, he wants to answer a taina machaltali, which normally machaltali is not really a taina, because normally a person is not moichel. But since he has an ability to taina lehoy dvar me'elam or to taina le'lavisi, anyways he would have been believed with the other taina. So there's no real problem by the fact that you're giving him suggestions of tainas, because even if he's going to taina grua, but lepel, that taina would be believed because he has a migoy of the other taina. So therefore, there's nothing wrong with actually giving him a suggestion of a taina. But lepel, they tell him you should say your taina clearly, and they even give him suggestions like or chazarti preticha, and that he has to answer that answer. V'chein, im Toen, this we're talking about the Nitan. The Toen Taina Brura, that I lent you money, I gave you a pikadon, gezalte, you owe me, I worked for you, and the din is that the Nitan has to answer a Taina Brura why he doesn't owe money. So now that I'm saying v'chein, im Toen hatein v'omar zeh chayiv limona, imona yeshli eitzel zeh. You use this lesson, he owes me a money, or I have a money by this person, meiz upon him. How does he owe you money? So you lent him money, if God it etzle, yizik mameidcha, emer hechnes chayivlcha. Sharei efshe shiyid mashu chayiv. It's possible that he thinks he's chayiv, v'hu ein chayiv, ki in shechosh de sheganvei. In other words, he only is chosh that he's ganvei, but he's not like he knows for a fact that ganvei. So because of his chshad, he comes along and says it's a fact that this person was ganvei. This person said that he's going to give him matana, and even though he said it, he's not really chayiv, and therefore this other person, the Tayin, thinks that since he said it, he owes me money, so he's coming along, and it's taina, he owes me money, so Bezdin wants to know, what's this taina? How does he owe you money? Memela, so he has to clearly explain the taina. Now the Maisa is that, so the din is side the person that's Tayin has to explain the taina, inside the Nitan has to explain the taina. Now, l'chur, if the Tayin comes along and says, you owe me money, he doesn't explain why he owes the money, l'chur, that doesn't really have a din taina. Because l'peil, maybe he thinks he owes the money, but he has to say clearly what the taina is. The fact that he's just saying he owes me money, the pashtus doesn't really have a din taina. L'chur, the pashtus would be also the Nitan. When the Nitan says, I don't owe you money, so l'chur, in order, there's a din, when a person has a taina, so there has to be an answer to the taina. You can't just not answer. Mashal Shem is also an answer. He says, there's possibility there, possibility not. But if he possibly doesn't answer, he doesn't want to answer, so Be'emes the Tayin has a schus to take the money. Because Lepel, the Nitan has an obligation to respond to the Tayin. Now Lepel, the Nitan is answering, I don't owe you any money. And he's not explaining why. So L'chura, that's not an answer, because who says it? I mean, he's saying I don't owe you money, but Lav Dafka, what he's saying means anything, because he may think that he doesn't owe him any money. L'chura, that would be the pashtus. Just like the taina of the Tayin doesn't really have a din of a taina unless he says clearly what the taina is. So the taina of the Nitan doesn't have a din of a taina either unless he says what the taina is. But the Ma'aseh, the Lashon Rambam before is mepnei ma'i mekabel mimenu tshuva zu. So the Rambam says because maybe he's making a mistake and he's going to end up saying a tshuva sheker, a shvuas sheker. So the Rambam is not saying that it's not a taina. L'chura, you have to understand. L'chura, when a person says you owe me money and he says I don't owe you money, so l'chura, the reason why you don't accept it, because it's not a taina. What do you mean you don't owe me money? Why don't you owe me money? From the Lashon Rambam, it sounds like when the person taina is, I don't owe you money, it's considered a taina. But there's a concern that he may think he doesn't owe money and not owe him any money, and really owe him money, and maybe he's going to end up swearing a shvuah sheker. So you need bitter a little bit. L'chura, when a person taina is a taina and it's not clear, the pashtus doesn't have a din of a taina. The Rambam doesn't say, there's no issue of shvuah sheker. Efshe shiyit meshu chayiv. So it doesn't really have a din of a taina. The taina has to be a clear taina. You can't just say, you owe me money. You have to say why he owes you money. So l'chura, when the person says, I don't owe you money, you would assume that also he has to say why he doesn't owe money. Lashon Rambam, it sounds like the reason why he has to say clearly is in order to avoid coming to a shvuah sheker. Then the Rambam continues, Haresha ton olav shilvo mana. He tainas, he lent him a money. The heisha zeva omar lihoyu dvarim elam. You never lent me a money. Now the Toyin brings Edom that he did lend him a money. And now the Chazer Hanitin V'Amar Kain Hoya, you lent me money, but Lavisi Uparaiti, but I paid the money. So the din is Ein Mekabel Mimenu, we don't accept the taina that I paid. Elahu Zekafrin, he's already a Hu Zekafrin to that money, he was a kofer on that money, so therefore we don't believe him anymore to say Paraiti. And therefore Mishalim, and therefore he's Mishalim. So there's a din that when a person has a taina, and he already said a lie about this taina, so now when he's going to have another taina about the same money, so then he's a hug zekaf. He's not a hug zekaf from Bechlal, he's over kafim for that money. And therefore he doesn't have a schus and a manas. Normally a person has a schus and a manas say paraiti. Masha'inkan over here, since he was already a hug zekaf because he said leilavisi, so therefore he doesn't have an amanas to say paraiti. That's what it says here. Avalim heishem eni chayv l'choklum. Or ein lecha biyadi klum, or sheker atatein b'chol kietz b'zeh. And so he answers a general taina, and then v'holach hativeya v'hevi edim shilvo b'fneim v'omer hanitva kein hoya aval echzarteli prigdene e preiticha cheve is lehu zekavra v'nish beheses v'nifter. So since he didn't clearly explain his taina, so if he's tained leila visi, and now we see that he lied by saying leila visi, So then that he lied by saying Leila Visi, so he became a Hugze Kafran. And now when he tainas Paraiti, he's not believed. Masha'enki, when he just says Sheker Atatain, I don't owe you any money, he didn't say why. So it could be because Leilava, it could be because Preiticha. Now you bring Adam that he was Lovis. He says, yeah, I was Takalov, but that's not what I meant. What I meant is Preiticha. And therefore he was never a Hugze Kafran, and therefore he's Neman. That's what it says here. So this is again a raya that L'chura, Be'emes, we see that he didn't, Im Heshiv Eini Chayiv L'cha Klum, Ein L'cha B'yodi Klum, and that was like a psashtigal answer. In other words, even though the din is he's supposed to answer clearly, but Lebeil he didn't answer clearly. And now the Toyin went ahead and brought Adam that he lent him money. So we see from here again that it seems like Be'etzem he's supposed to say an answer and explain the answer. But Lebeil, it's epis an answer it is. It's not an answer at all. That's what it seems to be from here. Now there's a harim pshat that L'chur we're going to learn Behemshech that Koleima Leila Visi came a Leiparaiti don't. So when a person says Leila Visi, it means I didn't pay. So L'chur, he came along and he tained him that you owe me money. He says Leila Visi, it means I never borrowed money. I never borrowed money means I never paid the money. And now he has Adam that he borrowed. So L'chur, if he has Adam that he borrowed, so Koleima Leila Visi came a Leiparaiti don't. We have Adam that he borrowed, and we have his own Hudah they didn't pay. So the reason why he has to pay is not because he was a Hugze Kafran. The reason he has to pay is because he used his own admission that he has to, that Leiparaiti, and Bamas Bahamshech will see that even if there's Adam Shapara, the Adam that he's bringing are Lava Upara, he also has to pay. Because Lepeil, he was made that he didn't pay. So why is the Ram saying over here that the reason why he doesn't have to pay is because he was a Kafran? So in Lechem Mishnah it says that this din, that he's not Nema to say Preiticha, is even if he tines Preiticha after the Adam came. That's not clearly the Lashon Rambam. The Rambam says he tained on him, and he says Lehoy Dvarim Eilim, and then he brings the Edom Shehelvo B'fneim, and now B'Chazer Anitin B'Amar Kein Hoya Lavisi Uparaiti. So the Pashas Lashon Kein Hoya Lavisi Uparaiti is going on the story in the back, in the story that happened Lavisi Uparaiti. The way Lechem Mishnah is learning, it comes out that he's taining now Paraiti. So that's understandable. If he's taining now Paraiti, so there was no Hidah that he wasn't Pirei now. The Hidah was that he didn't pay before. And Lepel now, he doesn't have a schus and amonis of paraiti because he's a Hugze Kafran. Halacha beis. Ra'u edim Shemona le'mois. They saw that Reuven was giving money to Shimon. V'liyada mahin, and they don't know what the money was about. Now Tavi bedin. Reuven is money by Shimon the money. V'amar le ten le'mois shel visicha. And v'amar le, and on that Shimon is answering, you didn't lend me any money. Matanan satamli. You gave it to me as a matana. A piroin or you owed me other monies and you paid me the money. So the din is I raise a naman. So the nitan is naman, and v'nishba has his v'nifta. So even though there are edim, and there are edim that saw him giving him money, but they don't know why he gave him money. So Mamela, the person that received the money, has a right to say that he received the money either as a matana or he received the money as a payment, whatever. Omar, however, if he says Lehoy Dvar Meilo, he says you never lent me any money. So then Hugze Kafran. So now he's a Hugze Kafran. And Memelin, once he's a Hugze Kafran, so he has no Namanis to say Paraiti, like we learned before. And the Pasha means that over here he can say Pasha, that means he has no longer a Namanis to say Paraiti on this money, even if he says Paraiti now. He has to be Kafer Bebezin, and V'yaveu Shnei Edim V'yakhishuv Mashakafar. In other words, he was Kafer in Bezin, and now two Edom are saying that what he was Kafer was a lie in Bezin, so now he has the din of a Hugze Kafran, and therefore he has no Nemanis Legabi, this money that it was a Hugze Kafran. Halacha Gimel. Mona Hilvisich. The person tainas, I lent you a mana. Kafar bebezin ba'amar lihoyu dvarim elam. And now ubo shnei Edom shalavim mimenu mana. Upare. Now the two Edom are coming along and say he borrowed the money and he was Perez. His original taina was Lehoy Dvarim Eilim, I never borrowed. Now the two Edom are coming along saying, no, you did borrow and you paid. And but the Malva is still maintaining, I never got paid. So again, the Nitan Tainid, I never borrowed the money in the first place. Then comes along Edom and says, you borrowed and you paid. And the Malva is saying, no, I never got paid. So the din is Harez the Chayiv L'Shalem. So he has to pay. Why? Since he's Tainid Leilavisi, Ubo Edom Shalava, and Edom are coming and saying that he was Lava, it's as if he said Leiparaiti. Because he said Leilavisi, and now we know that he was Lava, so it means basically he was Leipara. So the labor really admitted Leiparaiti, Vo Edom Edom Shapara. So he does Baldin, Kime Edom. he does baldin k'mei Edom, and therefore we have Edom shalei para. Ve'ein amal v'chayev shvua klal, sharei huchze ze kafra. So the Rambam is saying, first of all, he's saying that lepeil, when he said leila visi, and now Edom are saying that lava is kilu emelei paraiti. So even though there's Edom shapara, we don't believe the Edom shapara because he does baldin has stronger than the Edom. He does baldin k'mei Edom dami, and really even stronger than Edom, and therefore we accept that he does baldin. Now the question is, should the malva have to swear? The person that's tiny, he has the money. So on one hand, he has Edom which are saying that lava, and we have the he does baldin the para. But there's also Edom that's saying lava. So the Rambam says the reason why the malva doesn't have to swear, because to be a nishba v'neitel, is because he's a hugzek kafran. He's a hugzek kafran. So the Ravid asks, why do we need the hugzek kafran? L'chura, we have Edom that's saying that he owes him money. Because we have Edom that's saying there was lava, and we have his admission that leipara. So l'chura, it means he has to pay the money. Obviously, why should the malva have to swear? So that's, you have to understand, why do we need the addition of sharei hugzek kafran? The Ramah brings a teretz that there's a Gemara that says that when a person, when Edom come along and say nitmesi, and then he's tiny le nitmesi, so we learned that when he said le nitmesi, he doesn't mean le nitmesi, it means nitmesi v'tavalti. So l'chor over here also, maybe there should be such a svara. And as he said, lahadam. Now there's Edom saying that lava, so let's learn pshat. And that since he said, there's Edom that's saying lava, and he's saying lahadam, so maybe it means lavisi uparaiti. So maybe let's accept the fact that his parent won't look at the paraiti as being mamish ahidas baldin de lay para. So now he says, no, over there we're talking about the Edom came first. First the Edom came, said nitmesi, and now he's coming along and he's saying lay nitmesi. So over there we say, since there were Edom that said nitmesi, but Pashtus he's not being makish the Edom, so when he's saying lay nitmesi, we're learning pshat that it means nitmesi v'tavalti. Mashayin over here, when he came along and said that lay lavisi, there was no Edom. So Mela, there was no Edom. Now when there's Edom saying lava, so he became a hugzek kafran. So Mela is a hugzek kafran. We're not going to go and say pshat in his words that he meant lava upara, because he said leila v'isi bepashtus. So since now he has the name of hugzek kafran, so therefore we don't accept what he's saying, and therefore the Edom, the malva could take the money without a shvur. Then v'chein im hetziol of ksav yodi shu chayv. You have a ksav yad that says that the person has his own ksav yad that says that he owes this person money. And then he says, "V'lei Omar," and he tainas lehoyu dvarim me'elo. V'zein ksav yodi is the din is him who's a ksav yodi bebezdin. Ishabo edim shuk ksav yodi. So again, is arezu who's a kafrin because he's taining leila visi. And here we have a ksav yad which proves lava, and therefore mishal normally against a ksav yodi he could taina paraiti. The Rambam paskin before that against Hazel, a regular star with edim you can't taina paraiti. Masha'ink and Hazel of ksav yodi you could taina paraiti. But over here, since his original taina was that ain't ksav yodi, and we have Edom that is ksav yodi, so therefore he became hugzek kafran le'esim moment. Once he's a hugzek kafran le'esim moment, so then he has to pay. Halacha dalet. So the Rambam continues discussing the dinim of hugzek kafran. Now again, a hugzek kafran means that someone has a taina against him, and be'etzem he would have a schus to taina, let's say paraiti or another taina. He has a schus to taina something. But lepel, he tained a taina which we know is not true, which wasn't true. So we know that he lied about this money. So once we establish that he lied about this money, even though now he's taining another taina, which l'chura we don't know that it's not true. And normally he would have a schus to taina, but the din is since he was already hugzek kafran le'esim moment, he already lied about this money, so therefore he doesn't have a schus and a manas of a taina which he would normally have a taina. That was the case of, let's say, Haitziel of ksav yodi, so he could have said paraiti. But Lepel, since he said it's not ksav yodi, and we established it was ksav yodi, it was established that it was ksav yodi, so we know he lied about it. So even though now he's taining paraiti, which he normally would have as chus to taining paraiti, but since he was a chuzah kafir le'esim moment, he's not believed. Halacha dalet. Mona hilvi sicha. The person is taining to the malva is taining to the lev, or he's taining is a malva. The toin is taining. Mona hilvi sicha v'huli biyotcha. Is Omer lehanitin v'alei praiticha b'fnei pleni u'pleni. I paid you already, and I paid you in front of pleni u'pleni. Now he really didn't have to add b'fnei pleni u'pleni. He could have just said praiticha, and he would have also been naman. But lepel he added the words v'alei praiticha b'fnei pleni u'pleni. And then ubo pleni u'pleni v'omru lehoyu dvar me'elim. He never paid in front of us. So l'chura, this person lied. So we say no, lehu zekafren. We're not really sure he lied. It's possible that he did pay b'fnei pleni u'pleni. They're saying that lehus that he didn't pay, She'ena edim zeichern el davar she'en edim bei. Leficha chishav aleva heses v'yipater. So over here, he Bechlal is not really established that he lied. In other words, he said that I paid b'fnei pleni upleni. Those two are coming, they say they don't remember, they have no recollection of him paying in front of them. But Lepil, since they weren't designated for Eidim, so we're not really sure that what they're saying is true. In other words, when a person is designated as Eidim, and he's saying Eidus, that this is what happened, that this is what didn't happen, so then that's a din, so we accept what the Eidus are saying. These two people are saying, we have no recollection that this person paid in front of us. Good, but that doesn't mean he didn't. Because it's something that a person wasn't put to be an aid, he wouldn't remember necessarily. So again, so we don't really know. He tained paraiti b'fnei pleni upleni. They're tiny. They don't remember him ever paying b'fneihem, and nevertheless, he's not considered who's a kafir. We accept this taina, despite the fact that Edom are saying they have no recollection of it, and he has to swear a hes. It's like a regular din. Ki a similar din. Tenli mona shel v'sicha. The tain is tining. Give me the money which I lent you. And he says, "Va'ato b'tzad amut pleni." And when I lent you, I want to give you a simon. You should remember, when I lent you, you were standing b'tzad amut pleni next to that amut. Va'amar hanitin le'amadati b'tzad amut zeh me'elim. I never stood b'tzad amut zeh. Ubo edim sha'amad, and we have edim that says that he refers did one stand. So the chura we see he's lying. So it's also lehuv zekafrim. Because the mason So the fact that he's saying le'amadati b'tzad amut zeh le'elim, even though he said it, and l'chura there is Adam saying that he did, but that doesn't mean he was lying. He didn't remember ever standing b'yatzad amud pleni. Now really it's two separate cases. The first case, the pshat is, he said that I paid you b'fnei pleni and pleni. We don't know really it's not true. We don't really know it's not true, because it's possible that he paid it b'fnei pleni and pleni. Although they're tiny that they don't remember. That's din number one, and that's why he's not a who's a kafir. The second din is that he's tining that I was never b'tzad amud pleni. So l'chura he lied. Because there's Adam saying that he was Amud Pleni. So the answer is Taki he wasn't. We assume he wasn't ever Bitzad Amud Pleni. But he didn't intend on lying. He's saying, I don't owe you the money, and I was never next to Amud Pleni. He has no recollection of ever standing next to Amud Pleni. So he doesn't become an Churz Kafrin. Even though Aliba de Emes, he Taka said he did stand beside Amud Pleni, that he never stood beside Amud Pleni, and the fact is that he did. Halacha hey. Person comes in Tainus Tenli Mona Shilvi Sicha. Bareho Edom. Here's Adam which saw me giving you halva. V'amar hanitan, and then the nitan says, "Preiticha b'fnei pleni upleni." I paid you b'fnei pleni upleni. That was his time. Now the emesis he could have said just preiticha. He didn't have to say b'fnei pleni upleni, because the Amal Sum Firu is that Amal was chaver beidem, ain't tzarich l'peir beidem. But l'peil he said preiticha b'fnei pleni upleni. Is Amram l'leva? So they say to the leva, the bezin says to the leva, Havi esam. Bring that pleni vihi potter, and in Mamela you'll be potter from Shvuas Heses. However, lebo they didn't come. Eshemesu, or they died. The sholchum din is ayam. Either they didn't come, or they're not available, or they died. So the din is yishava Heses shapari. So even though he said praiti b'fnei pleni, that is not mechayev him that he has to produce pleni to testify. She'ein onu matzrichen esil avion ela levarer dvarer v'lipotter af mishvua. The only reason why we're interested in him bringing those Eidim is in order for him to be potter without a shvuah as well. So therefore there's really no need for him to bring those Eidim and show that he's potter. He has an amanas parayno. He added paraiti b'fnei pleni. So we say, listen, if there's b'fnei pleni, bring them, and mele you'll be able to not have to swear. But lepel, if he can't bring them, he doesn't bring them, so then he still has the option of swearing. K'mei shabiyan. Halacha vav. Amalei b'fnei edim manali biyotcha. The time he tainis him manali biyotcha. In Amalei the nitva answers back him. So he was made. Now lemacher tavi bedin. The tevei brings the nitva ledin vehevi edim. He brings the edim that says that he was made b'fonav, that he owes him money. Now v'toan v'amar. So now the nitva tainis. No, the marido wasn't a real ido. Mishato yisibach. And therefore ve'in lecha biyodi klum. That's one possible taina. And afilo amar he tainas that he tainas lehoyu dvar me'elam, that the initial taina was that he was never moida. First he brings the taina against him that you were made against me, and then he tainas lehoyu dvar me'elam, and then they produce the edim, which the edim are saying that he was meida. So in either way is potter. And v'nish beheses she'en li biyodi klum. He could still be a nish beheses she'en li biyodi klum. Why? Shari li omer lam atam edai. He never said Atamedai. So since he never said Atamedai, so there's two things there. First of all, since he didn't say Atamedai, he doesn't have a din of Eidah. And since he doesn't have a din of Eidah, So therefore he could tie him Mishata Nibach. In other words, he could tie him Mishata Nibach because he didn't say Atamedai. That's din number one. And din number two is that if he says it never happened, so l'chure, if there was a hidah and he's saying it was never made there, so l'chure that's considered a huchze kafron, he lied. We have edim that it did happen. The answer is it happened. Something happened. Itaka happened. But on the other end, the fact that he doesn't remember it is not a pella because he never designated them edim. So therefore, since the fact that he didn't remember it doesn't make him into a huchze kafron. That's this din. There's two dinim here. First of all, that he has a schus to taina mishata nibach. And secondly, that if he tainas lehoy dvar me'elam, that doesn't make him into a huchze kafron. Because lepel, since he never said atamedai, so it's something which he's not mechuyev to remember. Just like he's not mechuyev to remember that he was that he stood by this amut, like we learned before. Let's read again. Allah above. Amalei b'fnei edim manili biyadch. And amalei here, so he was made lemacher tavi bedin. And ve'evi edim, he brought edim that it was made. And v'toan v'amar mishata yisibach ve'in lecha biyadi klum. That's one possibility. And Afila Amr, even if earlier he said already lehoy dvar me'elam, he said lehoy dvar me'elam before he said mishata nibach. He already said lehoy dvar me'elam. So the din is potter. V'nish behesed she'en le biyadi klum. Since he didn't say Atam Eidai, so therefore he has a schus to taina mishata nibach. Lechura, originally he said, Lehoy dvar me'elam, so let's make him into a huchze kafron. So you say, no. V'dover she'en eidos, ein lodem zeichri. Leficha chemam lehoy dvar me'elam, lehuchze kafron. The fact that he said Lehoy dvar me'elam doesn't make him into a huchze kafron. And the fact that he didn't say Atam Eidai doesn't make it, gives him the right to be able to say machshata nibach. V'lei eid, halacha zayin, v'lei eid, so the person's tiny the nitva doesn't see any edim. It was hitman le'edim. And now the tiveh goes to the nitva and says manal biyotcha. Amalei he was made up. So then the tiveh turns to the nitva and says Ritzeincha sheyoid plainly. Are you willing that person should made that you owe me money? Amalei I'm not willing because shema tichpeini bedin lemachar. Maybe you're going to call me to a dentata if it's going to be in front of Edim. So the Chura, this sounds like his Bamas is a real Hidah, but he's saying, I don't want to be made in front of Edim because I'm afraid that you're going to bring me to the dentata. These Edim that were hiding, that they were matman the Macheri Ageder, so those Edim that were hiding came and said the whole story. The Macher, they came and said this story. Tavi bedin be'eluedim is ben shetoam va'amar mishata yisibay. He's tying that this whole story, what happened, the taka happened, but mishata yisibay. Or ben sha'amar lehoyed var me'elim, the story never happened. The pale, these Edom are saying the story happened, he's saying the story never happened. So the din is arez and nishbeheses v'niftar. How? Because Lepel, by saying the story never happened, basically you're saying, if it happened, I wasn't serious about it. And he's saying it didn't happen, so l'chura we know he's lying. The answer is no, he's not lying. He has no recollection of it happening. Why doesn't he have a recollection of it happening? Because to him it was all a joke. So in other words, when a person says about something that he should have had a recollection, and we know that he lied, so then he's considered a huchze kafron. Masha'inkan over here, the hidah is not a din hidah because Lepeli didn't say atamedei. Even though it sounds like he was being meidah, but since he didn't say atamedei, so maybe he was mishat ani bachin. It was such a situation. He's taining that lehoy dvar me'elam, that we know is a lie, and that should take away his schus to taina about this moment. The answer is no. We don't know that he lied because since he never said atamedei, so memela it's justifiable to believe that he doesn't remember it happening because a person is not mechuyev to remember things that didn't really have any relevance. Ben shama lehoy dvar me'elam arizah nish b'esav nifter she'en kan eidus at sheyemer haleva atam eidai. When this Edis is liuv the kafrin, so even though he was be'amis made the b'fnei Edim, and lepel he tained that he was never made the b'fnei Edim, he's not hug the kafrin, and therefore he still has the schus to say that if he was made the, so then it was mesachik anibay, it was meshat anibay. Ma'aseh be'echot she'koyer noisu kav roshu. What does it mean kav roshu? Kolei meshiyeshel of cheves harve. Kav is a measurement, and Roshu is Chavis, so he has the measurements of Chavis, a number of Chavis. Is Omer, so he wanted to rid himself of that name that he has a lot of Chavis. So Omer, I only owe this and this person. Lepel, he said clearly in front of Adam that he owes this person. Now, Ubo Pleini V'Tovi, so the other person came who was Teveya, V'Omer who, and he tied us Eini Chayiv Le'Klum. I don't owe him anything. Even though I said that I owe him, but I don't really owe him anything. It doesn't really say why. He's not justifying why. Now over there, we're going to see Behemsha that normally, even though a person has a schus to taina mishata nibach, but he has to taina mishata nibach. In other words, when the Tiveya comes with the Eidim, he says you were made in front of them, Bezin is not going to say maybe he was mishata nibach. It's just that if he tainas mishata nibach, then we accept that tainas. Or the chur over here doesn't seem to say that he was taining anything. We're saying that he was right away niftar. He was niftar without a taina. So Achreinim explained because the pshat is, in a normal case when there's a tiveya, he was tiveya him, and he answered him back at tviya, so the pashtus it was a hidah. He mon from him, and he answered him back to tviya. The pashtus it was a hidah. Just if he tainas mishata nibach, he has an amonis to taina mishata nibach. But if he doesn't taina mishata nibach, we assume it was a hidah. But over here, he never said it b'derech hidah. He was saying it b'derech sipur dvarim. Those people were saying that he owes a lot of debts, and he says, "No, I only owe this and this person a debt." It wasn't l'chatchila said b'derech hidah. So over here, even if he doesn't taina mishata nibach l'chatchila, it's not really considered a tviyah. But so Memelis, it's not really mamish a comparison. If that's the case, it's not really a comparison to what we learned over here. But the nukud of the comparison is that a haidah is not considered a haidah unless he says atamedai. V'chein echad hoyoim rolav shubal moment. There was a person that they tained that he has a lot of money. B'shas miso amar ilo hoyeli moment. If I would have really moment, hali hoyisi peri lepleni upleni. I would have played this and this person, which I owe money. So basically, people thought he had a lot of money, and people said he had a lot of money. It could be he had a lot of money, but Lepel, he's tiny. If I would have a lot of money, I would have paid this and this person. And Va'acham Yisasi Bo Isi Pleini Upleini Litvei. He says, listen, he was made there before he died, that he owes me money. V'amru Chacham Ein Lahem Klum. That's not considered a taina. She'ein Adam Osi L'Haris Atzmi She'ein Bal Moment. She'adam Osi L'Haris Atzmi She'ein Bal Moment. People don't want people to think that he has money. And also, person doesn't want people to think that he has money, and a person doesn't also want people to think that his children have money. So, when a person says eidah, not always this eidah we can take to use against him. And as you are made this, and made you can't taina, it's not true. Sometimes a eidah you could taina, either you could taina mishata nibach, or you could taina shalei lasbias bani to antis. So it would be such a taina. And Mamela over here, let's say Rechayisemim, we taina shalei lahazbiya zbon of Omerke. Halacha ches. Aval pisha hamatman edim eno edis, like we said before, that if this person tainas in front of someone, he tainas, Reuven says to Shimon, you owe me money. And Shimon answers he owes him. And Lepel, he doesn't see that there are Edim there. And the whole story that you wanted in front of Edim, Lepel, and he said, I don't want because I'm afraid, you tichpeinu l'din. So Aval Bishamat min Edim Eina Edis, the Edim aren't really Edis, and therefore they can't mon money based on these Edis. V'cheina Meida Me'atzmei, and the Edim Shem Meisi just as Meida, and Edim Herit is also not Edis. V'cheina Emel of Chavere B'fnei Edim Moni L'biyotcha V'amali Hin, and he answered yes, but Lepel it wasn't Atamedai. Is called Elo Hadvarim Ukietzebem Ksheovei Lebezin. Is Emel Nitva Lama Leitit Lezem Asheyesh Le'atzlecha. The Tivei is tiny to the Nitva. And there is a taina. It's not like there's no taina over here. And Bezin turns to the nitva and says, listen, the Tveya has a taina. Why don't you pay up? However, Amar Einli Etzli Klum, he does. I don't know him anything. So we ask him, but you were alone, you made it yourself, that you do owe him the money. Is him Amad V'Shilam Harimutav. We don't help him with this taina. We don't go to say, maybe you Shalela is Banav. Maybe it was Amshat Anibach. The pastors Advarim, since he's being Teveya, and he was Meida, so that's considered a Tviyah. And Bezin helps the Tviyah. They tell the Nitva, pay him. He has a good Tviyah, why don't you pay him? However, V'imli Ton is Eintenele. Avalim Ton V'am, if he himself tained, Meshata Yisibay, Elihoyu Dvar Me'elam, Eshalei Lazbias Atzmin is Kavanti, on any of these tainas. So if he tires lehoyu dvar me'elam, we know that it was hoyu dvar me'elam because there's Adam being made that it was hoyu dvar me'elam. So Pashi you have to say that in lehoyu dvar me'elam means also mishat anibach. In other words, I don't have any recollection of this happening. Lehoyu dvar me'elam. And basically what I'm saying is that if you're going to say that it did happen, so it happened in a way that I wasn't serious about it. That in the words lehoyu dvar me'elam lies two things. I'm saying it never happened. Obviously it did happen because Adam are saying it happened. But the fact that I said it didn't happen doesn't make me into Huchze Kafrin because I'm not expected to remember it happened. because it wasn't serious by me. So memela, I'm also saying that it wasn't serious by me. Because by saying lehoy dvar me'elam, I'm saying that it wasn't a serious eidah. That's l'chura part of it. The imlei toan into avim toan v'am mishata yisibei. Elihoy dvar me'elam eshalei lasbias atzmis kavanti. I was just saying it in order for people not to think that I'm rich. Is potter and v'nish behases kimei shabiyan.